Hello, my YouTube family. This is the OG Crypto New Jack coming at you with some juicy news. But before I begin, let me say I am not a financial advisor. Anything you see or hear in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial advice. Remember to do your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making investment decisions. We're going to start by looking at the total crypto market cap. It is at 1.21 trillion. It is down 1.3%. Coming in at number one is Bitcoin at 30,189. Coming in at number two is Ethereum at 1,852, and our beloved XRP is coming in at number 6 at 47 cents. Taking a look at crypto bubbles, we got Bitcoin Cash looks at the top gainer at 13.2, and looks like Kava is the biggest loser, down 10%. The Fear and Greed Index is in greed at 55. And shout out to Mr. Man, he has a couple of good clips that we're going to play. This is central banks do not have the intent to give up power. They will not change their goals in what monetary policy ought to do. Follow the money. I'm going to play it.
Before I invite Patricia to comment, I want to share another provocative audience question, which is, reads, don't you think that with CBDC, stablecoins, etc., future monetary policy will be shaped by IT specialists, and the role of economists will be to accommodate for technology outcomes? So with that in mind, Patricia, I'll hand it over to you for your thoughts on the obsolescence of economists and the programmability of money.
Oh, I don't know about the obsolescence of economists, but if you think that governments and central banks are going to change their goals about what monetary policy ought to do, control of a stable currency, I believe that's the stable fiat currency, I believe that's the terminology in the Federal Reserve Act. That's not going to change, and that's defined in terms of inflation and output, and that's not defined in terms of the technology behind it. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. It took a very long time for central banks to come around to a system that kind of sort of works, where they don't at least mess up on a regular basis. They do still mess up.
Okay, very interesting. The next one is, this is confirmation that cash will be going away, but not right away.
That you could then use as an SDR is a problem. So as long as money is sovereign, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, because certainly everybody domestically wants it that way. I do think that one of the design challenges here, whether it's within a country or internationally, is thinking about how the different types of money interact. So now I'll talk like monetary economists, for example. Digital money. Here I'm thinking retail as much as wholesale, more than probably cash, which is still there, not going away right away. And then insured deposits that you could then use.
And here he writes, the digital yuan is taken over. Unification will reign, but it will be a gradual takeover.
I want to turn to you, Daryl, and I'd like to get your view on how geopolitics is shaping the CBDC race, if you will, and how that might affect the possibility of change in the international monetary system. So over to you, Daryl.
Thanks so much, Pierre. And I hope we don't get into issues of war, but you're right. It is the very idea of currency dominance is a big geopolitical issue, and it has been historically, going back to foreign policy discussions involving currency dominance, like Giscard d'Estaing's famous comment about the exorbitant privilege of the dollar. And when you introduce CBDC in the mix, the conversations could go onto steroids. For example, discussions about dollarization become a lot scarier if you have a dominant currency that becomes tokenized, and now whether a private or a CBDC currency that can be used all over the world, it makes dollarization or yuanization, as we might get into, a more of a geopolitical issue, because it can be invasive if not controlled. And so these discussions at the highest levels are likely.
All right. Well, once again, shout out to Mr. Man for putting these clips out. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. This is Subjective Views. This is the BIS Annual General Meeting, a blueprint for the future monetary system. Let me put it.
Now, to be sure, tokenization efforts are already happening. Crypto and decentralized finance, or DeFi, offer a glimpse of tokenization's promise. But crypto is a flawed system that cannot take on the mantle of the future monetary system. Outside crypto, private sector initiatives have explored the practical applications of tokenization for real-world cases, but they have been hampered by the siloed nature of their initiatives and have been disconnected from other parts of the financial system. What these projects have lacked is a tokenized version of central bank money as the settlement asset. Having central bank money in tokenized form as a settlement asset in the same venue as other tokenized claims provides a firm foundation for the functionalities of tokenization. The smart contract can then refer to the means of settlement as well as the underlying claim that is being transferred. In this way, the foundation of trust provided by central bank money means that it can knit together all the key elements of the financial system. Now, tokenized forms of private money complement CBDCs and provide a primary means of payment for real and financial transactions. And there are two main candidates for this role: asset-backed stablecoins and tokenized deposits. Both represent liabilities of the issuer, redeemable in the sovereign unit of account, but they differ in crucial respects on how they're transferred and hence in their suitability as the primary means of payment. Stablecoins, in essence, represent a transferable claim on the issuer, similar to a digital bearer instrument. They're similar in spirit to the private banknotes that circulated during the free banking era, where private money circulated with the issuer's name printed on the note.
All right, shout out to that. But let me tell you, I think that has Ripple XRP written all over that. Okay, moving on. The Wolf of Wall Street put out the movement to fire Gary Gensler is gaining steam, prompted by the efforts of U.S. Congressman Warren Davidson and his proposed SEC Stabilization Act. Everything you need to know. And then Warren Davidson retweeted that with a fire Gary Gensler, fix your Securities and Exchange Commission. And you know what? I'm all for these lawmakers from both sides of the aisle that sees that something needs to be done. But in reality, let's be realistic. We have the GOP who's in charge of the House. The Democrats have the Senate and the Oval Office. President Biden was the one that put in Gary Gensler. So even if they are lucky enough to get enough Democrats to get on board, when it gets to the president's desk, he's going to veto it. We all know that this is going nowhere. Gary Gensler will not get fired. But they do have the power of the purse, and the GOP's congressmen and women can do this on their own, cut off the funding, and that's the end of the SEC, because they won't have any money to go after anyone. So that if they really want to do something that's actually going to have real results, cut off the money. They have the power of the purse. This fire Gary Gensler sounds good and it can trend on Twitter, but it will do absolutely nothing in real life. What will do something is you cut off the funding that goes to the SEC, and that's the end of Gary Gensler and his overreach. And I'm moving on, leaving it there. Shout out to the ISO 222. This is Volante discussing their partnership with Ripple. Let me play it.
Detail and depth in the particular products. I know that there's a lot of new things that you're working on. Some things that you'd like to share with us.
Sure. Today, I think we have announced one more product which helps the latest technology, blockchain technologies. It is open ledger technologies. We are already just out for the last few months, I guess, with one of the companies called Ripple, and we have already partnered with them, and we have a working product which we have demoed here, and we are going to demo that to a lot of our customers as well. And we're getting a lot of good traction there, saying customers have looked at it and they're saying this is great because it's when they're thinking about these things and we show the solution, they really love it.
You know, very interesting to me because, of course, as you mentioned, blockchain is getting a lot of coverage, and I think a lot of people still associate very much with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and that might not have given the right image of blockchain. So it's really refreshing to hear that there's other applications in financial services, and that you've actually brought some of that into the market. I'd like to hear a little bit more.
Again, you're absolutely right, because blockchain has been associated with Bitcoin. A lot of people have not been looking at other things, but I think now the knowledge of blockchain technology is becoming a little more popular, and people are learning more on how it can be used, right from the securities market to the payments market, the settlements and all that. I think as we go forward, again, there will be a lot of excitement regarding that, and there will be a lot of new players, and eventually there will be shake-up, and then some of the leading players will settle down as the leading leaders. By what we are trying to do is, it really doesn't matter which vendor you go with, which technologies we go with. Our architecture itself is built in such a way that we are, I would like to use this phrase called future-proof, which will support you as the technology change or industry change, but you'll be able to address it in a very agile fashion to address those needs as you go.
Exactly. He actually mentioned Ripple, but here we have Volante Technologies, one of the most respected global provider of payment solutions, is settling transfers through transfer using XRP through a link with Ripple. The Jersey-based firm has confirmed. So nothing but good news there. Okay, moving on from CoinDex. They put this thing out. The regulatory pressure is going to continue to keep out the traditional firms and the innovators. This is BITGO CEO Mike Belshi. Let me play it.
Well, I think the regulatory pressure is going to continue to keep out the traditional firms, and the innovators, those that are able to provide a high level of technology to the product line, are going to emerge as larger. And BITGO's been a technology company from our inception. We're not a bank by design. We're actually technologists. I spent my 30-year career all in technology prior to digital assets. So the regulatory overlay on top of the industry is really holding out some of the traditional players. To be honest, it's unfortunate. We really like all of the traditional players to be able to participate in digital assets. It's the number one thing that regulators could do to help make the markets stable. But unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, he said he doesn't think it's going to happen. And to a certain point, he's correct. But as you can see, with all the big institutional players putting in for the spot Bitcoin ETFs and all that, it's coming around slowly but surely. It's going to happen, in my opinion, because BlackRock has a lot of connections, and I don't see them getting denied. Okay, moving on. Shout out to ISO 2022. He also put this out as well. Let me play it.
Some super big news for you. One of the biggest announcements in FEDNOW, and I want to say the biggest announcement since FEDNOW service itself was announced, just came out. The Federal Reserve announced the addition of multiple organizations to the FEDNOW Service Pilot Program, new ones that are joining the FEDNOW Service Program. These participants, they're joining the already established 120 other organizations that are already in the program's testing phase, which began earlier this year and will continue until the launch of the FEDNOW service in 2023. And out of these new participants, one of them really stands out. Who? The U.S. Department of the Treasury's Bureau of Fiscal Service. That's the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Bureau of Fiscal Service. To me, this is the biggest announcement in FEDNOW since the announcement of the FEDNOW service. Why? Well, think about it. Who is the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Bureau of Fiscal Service? They are the government agency that, among many other things that they do, they provide the central payment services to the American public on behalf of government agencies. And they operate the federal government's collection and deposit system. Just how many payments are we talking about potentially here, Professor? Well, if we go look at some of the data available on the internet, you can go check this yourself in the Bureau of Fiscal Service, and we look at data through fiscal year 2021, the Bureau of Fiscal Service processed nearly 202 million EFTPS transactions valued at $3.56 trillion in tax revenue. They processed nearly 81.4 million transactions worth nearly $210 billion through pay.gov. They securely dispersed 1.7 billion payments totaling more than 6.4 trillion, and they did it 100% of the time. That's a lot of payments. Let me break this down for you a little more. If you get a federal government benefit payment like Social Security or an electronic funds tax payment system like, IRS tax returns, then you have benefited from a U.S. Department of Treasury's Bureau of Fiscal Service payment. Well, what's this really going to mean to you? As a financial institution, as a consumer, it's going to be huge. And the truth is, I can't say for sure because there's no official announcement that has been made by the Bureau as to what this will mean. But I believe this means that your bank and your credit union needs to get on the FedNow network, that it will enable you to be able to receive government payments like IRS returns, Social Security payments, or you guys remember back those electronic impact payments? Those were distributed by the Bureau of Fiscal Service. Could you imagine if you could get them faster? Can you imagine what it means to the payments industry, let alone the country, to have the U.S. Treasury Bureau of Fiscal Service having the ability to distribute FedNow instant payments? Go from getting a payment in a day or two to getting it in seconds. Again, this is my opinion, but this is a game changer. And to me, it's the biggest announcement in the FedNow service, or really in payments, in years.
100% agree. And as we already know, FedNow is one way or another going to be using Ripple's ODL through their partnerships. And that's going to be huge. Okay, moving on. CoinDesk put this thing out. The inner workings of the FTX official have been further detailed by its bankruptcy CEO in a new report accusing former CEO SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, and his top managers of knowingly misusing billions in customer money. And so they basically took 8.7 billion of customer money and either commingled or just misused them, misappropriated them, i.e. stole them. Yeah, but that's no shocker here. Okay, I came across this. Cryptocurrency issuers in Japan get a crucial tax relief. And I highlighted the important part where it says here, Japan's National Tax Agency, NTA, has updated its corporate tax regulations, bringing clarity to the treatment of cryptocurrencies. Under the new rules, unrealized gains from crypto assets issued by companies will no longer be subject to the current 30% corporate tax, according to a notice released last week. As explained by the NTA, crypto assets will be excluded from a company's asset valuation based on market value if certain conditions are met. And that is good to see because it makes it more crypto friendly. Okay, shout out to Nomadic. He has this excellent answer from Mark Yusko here. He's talking about blockchain technology, and it's one of the 4 pillars of the digital age. Let me play it.
I'm just not convinced that this matters in a bold-faced way. I mean, it seems to me that crypto and Web3 kind of lost the narrative. This was supposed to be the future of finance and the future of, technology. A lot of people, the future of commerce, a lot of people were saying. Now that narrative has moved to AI, and crypto is sort of more in the metaverse bin. Why is that wrong? And does this move, and others like it that we're talking about today, does that move crypto and Bitcoin specifically any closer to being in charge of the narrative again?
Well, I think the narrative's actually completely wrong. The idea that the digital assets are in the waste bin, seems kind of silly to me. We're talking about a $1.2 trillion asset from zero 14 years ago, $500 billion in Bitcoin alone.
Well, but we're not talking about we're not talking about NFTs or virtual real estate in the same way anymore. People aren't trying to buy the virtual place next to Snoop Dogg's house. Like, people are concerned about actual commercial real estate right now.
Well, no, that's been the whole point all along, right? Blockchain technology is one of the 4 pillars of the digital age, the ABCDs, as we call them. It's AI, blockchain technology, computer chips, and data. Those 4 things are transforming the way we store and exchange value. The same way that media was completely disrupted by the internet and the value of the biggest media assets went to new assets, the same thing's happening in financial services. It's a long process. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over decades. But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust. and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
I'm just not.
And I 100% agree with Mark Yosko there. And in my humble opinion, the XRP ledger, it may not get every single one of those, but it's probably going to get a good number, a good portion of all that tokenization being put on a blockchain. Okay, moving on. The block put this thing out. HSBC Hong Kong now lets customers trade Bitcoin and Ether ETF. So it's not just here in America. We got other nations, other countries who are allowing this. Now, this, I believe, is a futures ETF. It's not a spot. So at least it's a step in the right direction. And before long, they're all going to be having spot ETFs as well. And that's going to be a good move for the crypto space. Okay, shout out to the crypto meme guy. He is very talented as well with this. Meanwhile, at JP Morgan, let's not focus on the millions of emails I deleted. Did you hear that Ripple is buying back millions of XRP, which was completely a false rumor going around on the social media, but very funny. Okay, Michael Van der Pulp put this thing out. The altcoins are slowly getting out of depression. Now is the time to invest. As you can see, the charts are looking very similar to how it is here on the Wall Street cheat sheet about the psychology of a market. I'm going to just say this is not financial advice and do your own research, but this could be the time to start looking into some investment opportunities on the tokens or coins that you find through your own research that will do well. You know, I already have a bag of a pretty good amount, diversified portfolio. Of course, is going to be Bitcoin, Ether, and the ISO compliant coins, XRP, XLM, XTC, IOTA, Algorand, Quant. There's several. Do your own research. It could be a great time to put some money in because the next bull run is going to be coming next year at some point. It's at or around the next Bitcoin halving, which is, I believe, March or April of next year. We're just 8 months away approximately. And it's going to be one hell of a bull run with or without the institutional money. But if the institutional money gets in, here we have Will Clement between HSBC, BlackRock, Fidelity, Schwab, and there's a couple more that he left out. You have 25 trillion in assets under management that will soon be enabled to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just a 600 billion market cap asset today, let alone the tightly held lost coins. It's not rocket science. And this is what I was just saying. Next year, there's a Bitcoin halving. It's a 4-year cycle, happens every year. It will happen. A bull run ignites at some point before, during, or after that Bitcoin halving. And this one will be no exception. It's going to happen. And if all these institutional players happen to get in on it, as he said, it's not rocket science. They can literally wipe off every single Bitcoin off the exchanges. And where Bitcoin goes, alts follow. And Tony Edwards from the Thinking Crypto podcast has it perfect with his response. Bitcoin is just going to skyrocket because scarcity means prices are going to shoot up. If all these institutional players get in, and literally every single Bitcoin on all the exchanges are gone, that just pushes the price of Bitcoin to heights that I've never seen before. And we will be going to new heights. This isn't financial advice. Do your own research. See what your research tells you. My research tells me that it is going to be an epic bull run that we are looking forward to sometime next year at or around the Bitcoin halving. But I'm going to leave it there, fam. It's going to do it for today's video. If you found this video to be helpful, would you please smash the like and subscribe? I would really appreciate it, and it doesn't cost you anything. Thank you much in advance. And in the words of Snoop Dogg, keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind. Peace out, fam.